back once again with That Guy's a Maniac, the podcast. Today, you are going to be hearing us talk about shit. Us being myself, Richie, and as ever, I always have my beautiful assistant, Farley. Say hello, Farley.
Hello, aka Fancy11.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit more about That Guy's a Maniac and where people can interact with us.
That Guy's a Maniac is the second best video game blog on the internet. It's me, Kanzi, and Richie writing about the same three video games we've been playing since 1989. You can find the core of the sewn together corpse at www.thatguys.co.uk, and you can occasionally find our postings, musings, and artworks at That Guy's a Maniac over at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. I don't know why we hype all of these accounts every time, given that some of them have virtually no content on them. But that's where it is.
I don't know. We're quite active on the Twitters.
Oh, I was avoiding that whole you talking like an old man about these things. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And there's something else we also talk about. Oh, of course, it's a sponsor. I'm so glad I did this unscripted. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I was surprised that it's ever been scripted, but there we go.
It's a pseudo script. It's sort of like bullet points of things that I should hit. And
every day is a school day.
Yeah. Okay. So, words saying things. That Guy's a Maniac couldn't be brought to you without the help of our wonderful sponsors. Farley, who's our sponsor this week?
Thanks. Thanks to the Resources Development Administration, the leading universal multinational in energy exploitation, particularly the exploitation of unobtainium. Thanks, Resources Development Administration.
Yeah, cheers, guys. We couldn't do this without you.
No. And never mind about all the planets you're fucking over.
Well, you know, everybody's got a little bit of a dark side and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So...
Wow. Hyped up energy. Fucking there we go. Right. Let's do it properly this time, and that is just tell us what we're talking about today, Farley.
So this week, Richie, we are talking about, as you may have got from the sponsor this week, avatars. We're talking about avatars, character creators, customizers, the many ways in which we represent our virtual selves. You may remember in the, I want to say the late noughties. Remember the noughties? There was a lot of sort of semi-academic literature came out about avatars and how we identify ourselves with our virtual selves, and it was all a bit wanky. However, for the longest period of time, since we've been able to kind of put ourselves into video games and customize how we look, or what we're called, people have been doing that, and what I guess we'll be doing today is just reviewing some of those things.
Yeah. I mean, we've got our own little crazy digital selves in so many different forms that exist in so many platforms. Yeah,
and I think it's been something of a kind of a gold mine, right? So all the DLC and the hat craze, and of course the horse armor craze, is all about how, you know, people really invest in their little digital dolls, as we like to call them. And the more I think you allow people to do that, the more they get really attached to their characters, and are willing to spend silly money when it comes to it.
Yeah, you get the wheels with the diamond hubcaps and things like that.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because by and large, it's obviously cosmetic, and you could argue pointless. But as I'm sure we'll cover, some people get really attached to what you can and what you can't do. I really like the idea of having your own character, and of course, it's a trope of spending hours and hours and hours in a character creator, and then kind of not really being interested in the game that you created the character for. And I'm sure many of us have spent hours,
Well, the number one example of that was in the mid-noughties. Again, we used the term noughties. You had, EVE Online, and you could spend forever making your character, but you would never, ever, ever see it in-game. It took a little while before they actually implemented the ability to go into space stations and stuff like that. But until then, you just had this amazing character creator for nothing. No reason. just kind of like a weird flex from those guys. Just like, look how great our character creator is. What is it for? Nothing.
Yeah, the more bars and sliders that you can have. And some of them aren't. I mean, it's almost become rote now, but some of them just don't really do anything. Or of the 20 options that you get for whatever it is, eyebrow width or cheekbone structure, 10 are trash, and nobody ever uses them. And then there's like the 3 good ones.
Well,
and then
you just sit there with a slider, kind of like you just grab the cheekbones and then just make them go up and down, sort of like flapping, sort of wings on their face or something like that. Like you used to be able to do with Mario 64. You could like stretch his face at the start. Yeah, exactly.
I'm all up for, and I'll talk about a particular game and let you do it, where there are kind of no holds barred, right? If you want to walk around with a completely ridiculous, multicolored, makes no sense character, I'm all for that, rather than I can understand why there are limits on some of these things because it ruin cutscenes. But then if you want to ruin the cutscenes, you can ruin the cutscenes, rather than here's essentially 26 versions of Default Man. And here's the 3 skin tones you can choose from. So let's talk memories. What's your earliest memory of not necessarily just creating a character, but inserting or personalizing something about your avatar or character, as opposed to just picking your fighter in Street Fighter?
That's really a tough one. I'm actually struggling to think of my earliest memory of that. You could do sort of like actually creating your own character from scratch.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a walking, talking character. I'll give my example whilst you have a little think. So I remember being absolutely blown away. I might have mentioned it before on the podcast, when you put in your video game name. What do you call those? It's not really tags. Gamer name sounds horrible. Wow. Okay.
A character name? Or
no, just your like your gamer tag.
Give us some context around this mystical word that you're trying to coin.
Well, the name that you call yourself. So some people are their name of their
like
character.
Kanzi11, like for instance. Yeah.
In every game they play is just John Smith because their name is John Smith.
Yeah, I would call it a tag then.
Yeah. And other people change it from game to game, and other people, like me, tend to have the same one that runs across different games. So I remember my earliest memory was you could name your character, and this was in V Rally 2, and it would appear on the number plate on the back.
Oh, that's quite cool.
And at the time, kind of blown away because you'd be playing it 4-player split screen, and it was just really cool that a part of your stuff, whatever you wanted, would appear on the back of the character, on the back of the car. And even though it was just a car you're driving around, and there's limited choice between what vehicles you could have, that really made it. And in fact, that's where my on and off TJM contributor Chuff72 got our gamer names from. So Kanzi11 origin story. we were around his house playing V Rally, and we could put in our characters' names, and we were all excited about the fact that it appeared on the card. So I was trying to put in a very naughty word, and he was worried that his mum would come in and see this naughty word on the back of a little V Rally car. I mean, not that she, it was a
So
classic,
you got as far as CU.
Yeah, so the C went in, then the U, then the N, and then you can see where he kind of then leapt across the room and wrestled the control off me. That it went
Brilliant.
up to Z, back down 1 to Y, up 2 to 1, and then another 1, and then that's it. That's where Kenzie 1 kind of came from.
Brilliant! Wow. I mean that makes this show special in itself. Just getting that origin story there.
Yeah, so that's the origin story, and then it's just kind of stuck. And occasionally, if I'm late to a game, it's already taken, and I'm a bit like, oh well, never mind.
Yeah, I'm to be honest, I'm struggling about my earliest memories of actually sort of customizing elements and things like that. I'm thinking Final Fantasy VII, where you just get the you have the generic blue panels,
yes,
and you had the ability to go into the menu, and you just ended up making it pinks, yellows, and greens, and this disgusting psychedelic block that took up 2/3 of your screen, and you were looking at for a great deal amount of the time because all of the text in the story was sent through this disgusting pink, yellow, green text box that you'd created. And I think everybody did that.
Yeah, I remember having luminous yellow in the bottom right corner, and then day glow blue in the top left corner. And it would singe your eyes just to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, some people, and we're not a judging podcast, some people are completely against that. Where do you stand generally on renaming characters? For example, Final Fantasy.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, for a long time it was always Richie. Like, regardless of regardless of knowing that it was Link or if it was Cloud.
Was it just every character was called Richie?
Yeah. Every character.
Yeah.
Aeris was Richie. Tifa was Richie.
Yeah. And then Amanda
was Richie. No. No, I think in Final Fantasy VII that was like one of the first times that I kind of was even thinking about editing that, and I went through and gave people different names. I can't remember off the top of my head, but like, oh god, yeah, like it was Cloud, and I changed that to Richie.
Yeah,
and I think Barrett definitely had another name, and of course, it definitely wasn't the first time around. But every time I play as Red 13, you have to change his name to Naniki for that one specific time and point in the game. So I was like, Naniki? Your name is Naniki? And you're like... Yeah.
So who's Nanaki? Nanaki is Nanaki?
Nanaki. yeah. That one tiny time that it happens, and you giggle, and is it worth it having him called Nanaki the entire time? Nanaki?
Well,
yeah.
There is. There's also what you could rename the GFs in Final Fantasy VIII.
And of course the dog as well.
Yeah. So if you rename, I think you rename Shiva Underpants, and then there's a scene. I was so tempted to buy Final Fantasy VIII Remake just so I could take a screenshot of this. When you go to fight Ifrit, I think, and if you have Shiva or something you have, he's surprised that you have it. He goes, oh my god, you have blah blah blah. So if you call Shiva Underpants, there's a screen cap you can get of Ifrit saying, they have underpants? In a very concerned way.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Yeah. Hilarity.
Yeah.
Whereas some people would, are dead against it. And
I mean, ultimately, this is what this podcast is all about. Is like you know, user generation, user creation, the creativity that we can do by renaming characters underpants.
Yeah, and I eventually turned it off for Pokemon Sword and Shield because I think if you did the maths, then you've run out of names for Pokemon, right? By the time you're catching your what feels like 50-second Psyduck, I've used all my go-to names. I've got like various sequels. Some that we just use the same name again. It's like number 1, number 2, number 3, 2.0. So yeah.
Well, yeah, you had General Golbat, and then there was Sergeant Golbat, and then there was Major
Yeah, and then
Golbat,
Lieutenant, yeah, and how many you kind of fill them in. Okay, so yeah, Final Fantasy screen is a good shout. What is your favorite character creator ever?
My favorite character creator ever.
Yeah.
Oof. I suppose shout out to the boob slider in Dead or Alive.
Yeah.
No. I think my favorite character creator ever. I mean, my head is automatically going straight to what's it called? Skyrim.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because it is so fully detailed. That being said, it does very, very quickly wear on you the intense amount of sliders. You briefly touched on this, but yeah, like being able to choose the thickness of the brow, and you're just kind of like, oh god, what the fuck is this one? You know? And you just like, you go through the sliders and you think, all right, okay, and then you scroll down and you realise that you're only about 1/10 of the way through the selection of sliders for the cheekbones alone. You know?
Yeah, there's another tab beyond that. Okay, okay. I've still got face shape and hip, waist, and whatever to do.
But yeah, I mean, I used to use this term for other things, but there was always this creativity within constraints as well. And I think if I remember correctly, I really, really enjoyed the what's it called, the Rock Band character creator.
Oh yeah,
because you had the ability to unlock all of these typical, rock or band sort of flair and peacockiness. So you'd get like big pimp hats, or you get heavy metal shoulder pads and things like that. But each one of them, you could like customize the colors and the elements into it. So you could make yourself all pink or all variants of pink, but you would get like 4 or 5 elements within that, like the shoulder pad, that you could change the colors of and change them around and play with. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was more fun that you were given that shape, and then you could change it into something new and change it about, and or theme it against something. And I remember I used to, it was when Rock Band 2 was out, I themed everything after the World of Warcraft Tier 2 Judgment armor. So it's
sad bastard.
Fuck off.
No judgments. No judgments.
No judgments. Oh, right. That's the funniest joke of the fucking show. Right, we're done. But no, it's like because it's quite iconic. It's red, black, yellow, and white. So you can play about with that, and you sort of make it along those lines. Give the hood and stuff. Yeah. I think I had a lot of fun with the Rock Band one, and you could do. You can do a lot of similar stuff with, and I'm just, this is quite current. It's the Soul Calibur. Outfits, because they no longer actually have like individual separate characters. They just have this individual body, and they are defined by the sort of faces and the elements that they're dressed in. So like Ivy's body is the same body as Cassandra, maybe she's got a bigger chest. No, both of them have big chests actually. But maybe one of them's wearing a blonde hairstyle and the other one's wearing the grey hairstyle, and they have Ivy's moveset. But it's ultimately just the same figure that you're putting around. So you get every time a character unlocks, or every time a character is released in the season pack. You also get all of the armor customizable elements for that character as well. So you can also play around with so much in that. Like, taking what I was talking about with changing the colors in Rock Band, you can change the textures, you can change the pearlescence, you can like make certain bits invisible on the armor as well. And so you can and again, this could just be like one shoulder piece, Ivy's famous shoulder bit. You can just play with that for ages, messing about, turning it into something completely different, and then putting it on another character who has, I don't know, Voldo's moveset,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say, I think I have more fun. Despite Skyrim having a really, really good character editor, I think I have more fun with the Soul Calibur one.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what your question was.
So what was your favorite, your best kind of character creator? The one that I was gonna pick. I think I've written about this on the blog before, www.thatguys.co.uk, because it's quite old. Is the character creator from WWF? I think it was before it was WWE. SmackDown 2. Know Your Role.
Oh my god. Is that the one that we played? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just end up making a luchador gimp and coming into the intro of "I'm an ass man."
Well, the best thing about that character customization, I mean, isn't just the tools that you get, but also the options you can go for, and the fact that kind of wrestling lends itself to that. But then SmackDown 2, I haven't really played later wrestling games, but it still has, and I think these things are related, the best career mode. And so a bunch of us put together a stable of characters, and not only can you customize various elements of the characters, so this is one where you could go absolutely ridiculous. So amongst the stable that we created, somebody had like a cow pie head, so the cow pies from Desperate Dan.
Yeah.
It's like the big pie which has two horns sticking out of it. Somebody had a head that was basically that shape, so you kind of make the Hey Arnold head, and then stuck a tail and some horns on it. Somebody else made what was essentially like a character, a caricature of Woody Allen, except all the limbs were really, really thin, and the feet and the one hand was gigantic, and the head was huge. My character, I made this zombie. So it was just like a default man with black pants, but blue and kind of sad looking. So not only could you characterize, you could customize your character. I don't know why I keep saying characterize your customer. You could characterize your customer. But then the career mode was because it was wrestling. You could then pick and choose their move sets, their entrance music, but also their entrance animation. So not only did you have options for the big wrestlers at the time, but you could also have silly ones where they fell off the stage or come running in with a mop, or I think there's one where you drive down in a motorbike. But the career mode was such that you could all, I think up to 8 people could launch into a career, and then you'd see the program matches every night, and you kind of have to work your way up. So you'd start doing the initial matches, and they were kind of against shitty wrestlers. But years before that Lord of the Rings game's Nemesis system, you'd then end up getting into beefs with people. So as much as you wanted to advance your career, you'd get into a beef with like Al Snow, right? Who at the time was early in the roster wrestler. And then you just could not shake Al Snow. He'd interrupt your matches, he'd interrupt your promos, he'd kind of come running in, and you'd really be like, oh fuck, tell fucking Snow. And like, he's interrupting whatever my three-way ladder match with the Undertaker, and I've lost. But because you had this development, and you had these little cutscenes, and you get these beef with kind of real wrestlers, and you could form stables. It just meant that those characters, when we played for a long time, unfortunately, I think the memory card that was on is long gone, so because we can't just put it on and just pick up where we left off years and years and years ago. But the characters went through different stories. So I remember, I think my zombie character called Zombie 11, imaginatively. I think his gender was female. So when I advanced the career mode, he started getting matches for the women's championship, I think. And then because of some Al Snow like incident, lost a title match. And then I can't remember why now. I changed his outfit, so then he was wearing Ash Ketchum's clothes.
Brilliant.
from Pokemon, and then that kind of changed his whole persona. And so that one still sticks in the mind as my favorite character creator, just because you could go so wacky with it. And I think the thing about these is the more that you can kind of set things how you want them, the more you kind of invest in that character. And I don't quite believe, it's not as deep as you insert part of your persona into it, I don't think. I mean, maybe it is for some people. So in that kind of literature that I was talking about in the noughties, there's a lot of talking to trans people, for example, about how video game avatars was one way.
No, that's I've seen similar articles, especially about the wrestling ones, where it's just full on acceptance, and that's where people can feel more comfortable escaping into video games, especially if you're part of that community.
Yeah.
And
so some people think it can be really important. I never really saw it quite like that, but it was that draw of essentially having a self-insertion character into your favorite kind of universe. When you create your own characters, what do you go for? Do you go for...
Can I just pause very quickly? I know you're going to ask me a question there, but speaking of the self-insertion and skipping over the double entendre there, I was actually you reminded me of the Dragon Age series as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because I spent ages on that character, like the really, really cool interactions you can have, and because it's a BioWare game, but like based on like what race you choose, or what what gender you are, or what class you end up choosing, can actually affect the storyline. And it's really, really cool because obviously they've had hundreds and hundreds of hours of voice work put on that as well, to react to you and how you look or how you behave, or indeed some of the actions you've taken as well, sort of like throwing you into that immersive sort of role-playing scenario. And the really, really cool thing about Dragon Age 2 was it actually read your Dragon Age 1 memory card or memory file. So like you could go in with your character, and your character from the first game would turn up, with all of the options and how you looked, with the same name, and would talk to you based on the actions that you had performed in your final playthrough of the game. As well. That was immersion to the nth degree. That was so cool. Just like that's my character from the first game. Kicking about, doing things. Like wow. Admittedly, I was a dick because I made my second character in the exact image of my first character. Gave her the same name as well.
Richie is Richie?
Oh, Richie, you're here. Hi, Richie.
Yeah, I mean that is cool, and I don't know. It's difficult to say how much this stuff happens, but reflecting on our future games talk, I wish more of that stuff kind of happened. It seems just kind of trivial, but it is one of those things that I don't know. For me, it just makes parts of your brain fire off. As you were describing it, as I was like, oh, that'd be really cool to see your old characters, particularly if you're not expecting it, turn up, and then that kind of gives permanence to your old character, but also the idea that the world was carrying on whilst you were away from the screen.
Your character's actually mentioned a lot, so you're almost willing it to happen, but you're thinking, they're not gonna they can't do that. They can't make it happen.
Yeah. And I think that's still, maybe we should have mentioned this in the future of games. We were playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey last night, and at the beginning of that game you can choose between the male character and the female character, and I still had a little moment of like, that's quite I can't remember what it is, chatting to some character, and they were saying, no man has ever done this, and we were playing as Cassandra, the woman, and she was well, no man can, but this woman can. And I still had that little moment of like, oh, that's really clever, even though it's not that clever, and I think we should be way, way beyond, tiny little tree decisions like that. But yeah, we're for whatever reason, we're not quite there in games that do allow your character customization. Back to what I was going to say, and you sort of touched on it. When you're creating your character, do you go for looks as much like you as possible, or do you go for whatever you feel like, whatever the sliders lead you?
Options, like
the complete opposite.
I used to I had a very copyable look for a long time. I had my little goatee and I had my glasses and I had the spiky hair. It was very, very easy to make me in video games. I made me in a lot of games. I made myself in Rock Band. I made myself in Soul Calibur. Nowadays, I don't do it so much because now I'm a big beardy, fat, old, bald man. Which doesn't inspire heroism. It's like, unless the game is Danny DeVito the game. It's a little bit different. But no, in the situation where you're playing a sci-fi game or a fantasy game, I will normally gravitate to some weird alien race. So, yeah, I tend to find that I gravitate to, if there is an alien race, or if there's, like in Skyrim, lizard people or cat people, I will spend a long time creating I suppose, weird character that is for that universe. Perhaps a defining one. Like, I had a character in Oblivion and in Skyrim who was Argonian, which is the lizard race.
Yeah.
He was rather imaginatively called Lizard Boy.
like his parents, as I guess, hatches from the egg. And the doctor passes the divers. It's here's your son. And his mother looks up to the father with that kind of, this has changed our lives forever look in their eyes.
Her eyes are welling up. There's a smile. There's almost a radiance in the room, or in this wonderful, touching family moment.
Yeah.
I shall call him Lizard Boy. Yeah, I don't think he had a backstory.
Okay. Yeah.
Certainly not one that I spent some time on.
Yeah.
So I probably spent, maybe 4 or 5 hours on the sliders alone. And then when it came to name entry, 10 to 15 seconds.
Lovingly crafted your OC in this world and then completely shelved him by calling him Lizard Boy.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I will gravitate to that. I also, I mean, both of us, I think we mentioned this before on the podcast as well, tend to gravitate to making female characters as well, just
Yeah.
because you can, and because they tend to have better clothing options, not pervy clothing options, but just in general.
Yeah. For me, it's just a more interesting option, I think.
Yeah.
To go with something completely different if you can. Yeah, and like you say, it's not 100% of it, but by and large, you get options that aren't, here's your what color of trousers do you want, and what color of shirt do you want, and that's it, and whether you wear glasses or not for male characters. I don't tend to try and make myself. By and large, I don't try and make myself in games. I think I did with Miis, but I think that was slightly different.
Yeah, like I mean, the difference between the Miis and or the Xbox avatars and stuff like that is they are supposed to kind of be a digital representation of you. I don't know. There seemed to be a sort of culture when they came out. Now, I mean, obviously, this was like 15 years ago when they came out.
Yeah.
Like, I remember everybody was like, "Look how good I've made this me," and it was of themselves, And when the Xbox avatars came out as well, I was like, everybody on my list looks. I think aside from your brother, and you, in fact, I think you are a black woman.
Yes, yeah, with blonde hair. She still pops up on, I've got something that's still linked to whatever Xbox Live accounts, and she's there doing a little dance and waves at me. Yeah.
But yeah, I think most people aside from you tend to have a very solidly I have spent a long time creating this caricature of this person, and the options for like Miis or the Xbox avatars are very limited, so it's quite impressive how close people got to them.
Yeah, it was I think it was a real. I loved Miis, and I think Miis were a big part of the success of the Wii, certainly, because that just genius move of a number of games where we will just sprinkle all the Miis you've got registered on your system in the crowd as NPCs. And again, for me, it just tickled that part of my brain where you'd be, either herring around a Mario Kart track, and the statue in the middle of one of the courses was, your grandma and your cousin or whatever, or
Mr.
in the
Burns that you downloaded from
from the and despite the really limited tools that you got, a couple of because Nintendo really went in hard with the Mii contest channel, the Everybody Votes channel, and the Mii channel itself, where they'd have these rotating contests and things that people would be able to create. Some characters are just much easier to create in different things, but doing amazing things with shifting noses and eyebrows around to make a Mona Lisa portrait head, or a bee resting on a flower, or all of these things.
Stuff like that.
Again, that kind of creativity within constraints that you mentioned earlier. To really kind of go for it. And then, so I really like the addition of Miis. Sadly, they've all but fallen by the wayside. I think they're hanging in there here and there. And the culmination, I think, which I would have loved to have seen more of, was games like Tomodachi Life and Miitopia, which you and I are both fans of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed that, but I think where the Miis succeeded was in that, like, wow, look what you can do, and you can create it, that's fantastic. Every other execution of it, I think, was disappointing. Those games were great. Don't get me wrong. But
Don't get me right.
but like, things bother me about the Mii implementation, and it was specifically things like sharing your Mii. Just it was almost impossible. I remember the bullshit you had to do where you could store a Wii of yourself, or a Mii of yourself.
A wee me.
Yeah, a wee Mii. You could store a Mii of yourself on a Wiimote.
Yeah.
And then you could go to your mate's house, and you could then upload your Mii to that Wii, and you could use it to do the tennis or the bowling, and be like, oh, this is so cool, so cool. Then you would go back to your own house, and you would find out that you couldn't use your Mii because it's still stored on another Wii that is active, and you're just like, oh my god, what is this shit? That implementation was really bad, to the point where you've seen two different versions of my Mii, which is the one that you've created of me, which is a horrible little goblin, and then my one, which is a bit more utopian. But yeah, it's just like that implementation. Just it was fine for 15 years ago. It's now 15 years later, and it's still quite hard to have and share Miis in the correct medium. They have become a little bit throwaway because, like you say, you probably still have a Mii kicking about on your DS or your Wii U, which is, Flower B-Face Man, and it's just like, it becomes a little bit throwaway culture. I like what they did, but I think it really failed at certain points in its execution as a medium, where it's something that should just be there all the time. It should be more like the Xbox One, except the Xbox didn't use your avatar in any fucking game.
There were
one or
some,
two or
weren't
something
they?
like that. Yeah.
I think some of the horrible Kinect ones.
Yeah.
Which didn't help the cause.
No.
for whatever universal avatars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're not even talking about PlayStation Home, because that was
No.
a disaster. But yeah, I really liked, and like I said, they're still hanging in there. You still got them in Smash.
Yeah,
you still
no,
got
in
them
fact,
in America 8. You still use them as your have them in your pose them on your profile, and I think probably me and you, either, though I'm sure neither of us will buy it, happy that Miitopia's coming back.
Is Miitopia coming back?
Yes, they're releasing it on the Switch.
Okay.
It was in the recent Nintendo Direct, and let me tell you, Twitter was not happy.
I mean, yeah, okay, right, I believe it. It's just like, why does that game need to come back?
Yeah.
Certainly not on the Switch.
I know, and also, you can imagine how it's priced. More than it was.
Okay.
Yeah. But all those. I think we're probably going to do a separate podcast about them. All those games with Wii in the title. Like, so Wii Music was cool, to have a little band of your mates and your grandma playing music. With Wii Sports Resort. Yeah, really rated that implementation, and I think it was a kind of a part of the Wii success, and that broadening the audience, and everyone was involved, because from the moment you create your Mii, it's a bit like, and I guess this is where it comes down to people who made their own, and then gamers who'd perhaps been playing games for a longer time, being like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not gonna create because grandma's gonna see it. I'm not gonna create my OC avatar who I use in everything. I'll just make something that looks a little bit like me, so everyone can recognize it when it pops up in different games.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than your, I don't know.
But yeah, like I
Persona.
really liked Tomodachi Life and the implementation of that, and giving the Miis a voice as well.
Yes.
Even though it was terrible, fucking Microsoft Sam, but it was definitely fun to have that and that implementation, and yeah, like the thing about Tomodachi Life was like that you needed so many characters. You needed more and more and more and more. So it's like outside of my circle of my friends and my grandmother and all that sort of stuff, you then start thinking, right, who else are we going to get, right? So you get the phone out, you have a little look for the QR code, and you end up with like ridiculous people like, oh god, who did I have? Was the main character in Twin Peaks.
Agent, what's his face?
Yeah, him. I had him as a character in Tomodachi Life, and I had Larry David as well.
Oh, yeah.
And you just create, like you just wanted a new person to move in, so you'd end up with that, and then they'd end up having a baby with your mum.
So for those of you who don't know, because it's quite an obscure pull, and it only came out on one system. Tomodachi Life. How would you describe it?
It had a mobile version as well.
Did it?
Yeah, it was awful. Do you remember?
I don't remember Tomodachi Life mobile. No. Oh, I don't know what that thing was called. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awful. Never mind.
Yeah. Short-lived. So yeah, with Tomodachi Life, imagine like Sims light. Really was light in that very little customization. You kind of bought whole furniture sets to decorate a block of flats with. But the glory or the genius of the game was that you essentially dropped your Miis in there, and then sort of got to watch their daily life on this island. And they'd have funny interactions and go on holiday with each other, and eventually if they got on well enough, they'd end up having a child, and then that child you could either raise in your game or send off to another island. And they'd send back souvenirs. And so it was for those moments you just.
But it was so random, some of the interactions as well. I remember I had you and your wife as a couple, and me and my girlfriend as a couple, and there'd be things like my girlfriend would be watching me and you having a conversation and laughing and getting jealous, that sort of stuff was just hilarious, man.
Through the window of the cafe at the back, or the daily news reports were hilarious. Basically they had rotating clip art and a set number of stories, but it'd be like a giant Ammonite invaded whatever you named your town, Tomodachi Life, and a little screen. So it was great, but ultimately made by the fact that you had your own customizable characters, and
projecting other people's personalities onto them.
And there are some friends who we no longer talk to, but we were friends with in the heyday of going around each other's houses and playing a bit of Wii Sports, that kind of live on in my life way more than they physically do, right? Because as you were saying, desperate for characters to port into Tomodachi Life and Miitopia. So my my wife's work colleague's husband is now still a part of my virtual life, and I probably haven't spoken to him in whatever it is, 15 years. But yeah, he has his own little quirky character. That brings on to a minor point that I had written down. Tangentially a part of character customization. NHL 2001 on the PlayStation 2.
Okay.
You could name your or you can name all the players in your team, right? And they'd have that, and choose their numbers. They'd have that name on the back of their shirt, and the number on the back of their shirt. But the commentators would say their names properly, which was amazing. And again, one of those features that I'm not really kept up with.
What was it, like Microsoft Sam stuff, or was it like?
No, it would.
Did it have a select roster of names? I don't understand.
Yeah, so it had so if you went for anything too wacky, it probably wouldn't read it. But for example, as we all did, one of the players in our team was Michael Jackson, and so whenever he got the puck, it'd be Michael passes to Barry. And it really made it. When they got sent off, it would mention them by name, and when they got MVP. That's again one of those little touches, but that really helps.
That is cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah. 2001. Where's that feature? Just expand that feature. So when you call your character.
Could you imagine the voiceover
Lizard
work?
Boy?
Lizard Boy. Hey! Lizard Boy has been relegated to the bench.
Yeah. Welcome to our town of troubles, Lizard Boy. Yeah, one of those. I thought it would come as standard, but it turns out it was a past future feature that we no longer have. I have another question.
Okay.
What's the hardest you've ever? What's the longest length or the hardest you've ever worked for a character customization bit?
Oof. Like to unlock something for a character or something?
Yeah, so either be it a voice pack, a piece of clothing, a crown, a medal.
I don't want to say. It's too much of a cop out.
It was probably WoW related, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Like I am like we're playing WoW Classic at the moment. I've collected all of tier 1, tier 2, tier 2.5, which is a big achievement, and then I am like halfway through tier 3 at the moment. So like collecting all of these is very much a thing. I'm also collecting some of the more iconic bits and pieces. I actually did a gear check for myself as well recently, because there's apparently an online tool which has been collecting all of people's data, and on my server I'm like 11th or 12th for like gear score, purely because I have so much fucking gear. Like I just collect all of the obscure bits and pieces, and quite happy to spend GP on like big fuck off weapons that nobody else wants and things like that. So
are you I want one of everything, even if it's the shittiest equipment you'll never use, or like
I like the meme equipment, yes, I think even if it's shitty equipment, then yes, but there is a finite storage in WoW as well.
Ooh.
So yes, you could try and collect one of everything, or the worst part is you get to a point where you're like, I don't use this piece of equipment anymore, or
yeah.
So I'm just gonna get rid of the looks that go with it as well.
Yeah. I probably don't need to hang on to Iron Bangle anymore.
Yes, that sort of thing. Yeah, there's no achievement attached to keeping Iron Bangle around. But yeah, no, like there is, there's certain weapons in the game which are special because like they're two-handers and they're stupidly fast, and so they were used for a niche time during like one of the first phases of it, and so it's like, oh, I'm gonna keep that one, because I got it enchanted with fiery blaze and stuff like that. It's just like, you're gonna keep those things, and I'm keeping my tier sets and things like that, and I suppose that's the ones that I have probably worked the most for.
But then I guess they are functional as well.
Yeah.
Well,
it depends on your definition of functional. But I suppose on the theme of perhaps more roleplay-ness, in Dragon Age there was a specific chain that you could do with your mage character. Now the mage character was normally, as it is with every other fucking fantasy game, it's a guy that wears a dress, it's it's your Gandalfs,
it's your black mage, it's your Orko.
Yeah, the glass cannon-y kind of character, you know,
Yeah.
squishy. But there was this special quest line that you could do, which was called the Arcane Warrior, which ultimately meant your magic stat became the equivalent of a strength stat. So you were still able to cast all your spells and stuff like that, and you could do other cool spells, which allowed you to enchant your weapons to do extra damage, magic damage. So you basically turned your mage glass cannon into this big tanky thing that could now wear plate armor and would do sort of melee damage going up to it. And I think getting to that point and then making every other mage in my party an arcane warrior as well. I always think of that as one of my favourite achievements in a game. Is actually just straight up going down that path, getting everybody to be these, you know, like putting to shame all of the plate wearing tanks that I've had previously. I don't need you. I'm gonna have a tank, you know, a team of 4 badass mages that are like, you know, semi-transparent, wearing all of the best plate gear in the game.
I just, in my mind, it's just you and your guys like rolling down the street, kind of like you know, the Warriors. Go out to play, and then they kind of lift up the visor on their plate armor, and it's just some nerdy little mage inside. Rather than some defect. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, just on thinking about that, have you ever played? I mean, I've not, but I've been told it's really good for this kind of thing. Dragon's Dogma.
No, I haven't. Again, a game I have, which I got in this Capcom sale. But yeah, no, I've not touched on it at all.
I've heard good things about, because you know you can customize your pawns, which are essentially like your helpers, but they play quite a big role in the story, and I'm told that, you know, kind of towards the end you're kind of bawling your eyes out because your character created pawn is whatever, you know, saving the day at the end. So it's not which we, you know, we kind of grew up with is any shit that you that you fucking hell. I might get it right at one point in the podcast. any part, you know, that any character that you've customized
that you characterize,
yeah. Every it used to be that when a cutscene happened, you know, you usually either wouldn't see that shit or your main character would revert back to the default outfit.
I mean, the ultimate example of that is, again, back Final Fantasy VII. Play through the game, there's an option to unlock Vincent and Yuffie. Guess who's not in the final cutscenes?
They're just, you're led to believe they're just hanging around slightly off camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, and to a certain extent, I am still, you know, a little bit blown away when you're playing a game like, oh, you know, Leon's got the outfit that I've given him, even though I think technologically we probably surpassed that point a long time ago. Dead Rising was the other one that you could completely ruin, because there would be these, you know, very grave and serious cutscenes, and you'd be dressed in boy shorts with a Blanca mask on. It was the main guys delivering, you know, this super serious monologue. I can't think of how the furthest I've probably gone for a customization element, but the one that jumps to mind is the leaf crown from Pokemon, which I did.
Oh God, yes. 3
times, and then it just didn't transfer. So as soon as you move them out of that game, it's just gone forever.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know, I can't remember which one it was now. Vamp.
No idea.
Bear with me whilst I look up. So for those of you who don't know, the leaf crown, shiny leaf, heart gold and soul silver, was this little thing that you get, which would appear on your Pokemon's profile page. But in order to get it, there were a bunch of locations, and depending on the nature of your Pokemon, I think you could possibly find it in one of 7 locations. But every time you flew or saved, it would rejig which 5 out of the 7 possible locations based on your nature it would be. And what you'd have to do is throw in or repel so you didn't get into wild battles, and then meticulously kind of walk up and down every single square of the long grass, talking to your partner Pokemon, until occasionally they'd find a shiny leaf.
Oh my god, yes. Oh,
and then
god.
Once you did all 5, I think you could go and see a character somewhere, and then your character would have this leaf crown symbol on their profile. And so I did that for 3 Pokemon. Back when, I'm sure there's some advanced tech for doing it now, or some shortcut for doing it now, but it was just painful process. And then like if you saved or turned it off or flew somewhere, the whole thing would reset and you'd have to start a new hunt for a shiny leaf. So I think that's probably the most amount of time I've spent on a completely inconsequential, does absolutely nothing, customizable for a character. And then, like I say, it Spanish. If one of these things didn't carry over,
That's so sad.
I know.
But yeah, it is what it is. Be what it be.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. Anything else you want to say about character customization? Got it right that time.
Nah, I don't think so. I think we covered most of it. I really find myself wanting to play Dragon Age again.
I was going to have a look at Tomodachi Life actually and see how everyone's getting on.
But yeah, okay, cool. Farley, that guy's a maniac.
Why did he bite me?